Wait a second. Before you click away to another video, give me a little bit of your time. 7 minutes. That's all I'm asking for. Not an hour. Not your entire evening. Just 7 minutes. Because if you're here right now, watching this video, there's a pretty good chance something inside your life feels unfinished. Not broken, not completely falling apart. Just stuck. Like your life is buffering. Like you're waiting for something to happen, but you're not exactly sure what. And if that sounds familiar, let me tell you something important. You're not the only one. A lot of people feel like this right now. Actually, if we're being honest, an entire generation feels like this. Somewhere along the way, life started moving faster, but progress started moving slower. Days blur together, weeks disappear, months vanish, and suddenly another year passes. You blink and it's already 2026, but somehow, nothing really changed. Your goals still exist. Your plans still exist. Your "I'll start soon" still exists. But the action, that part never showed up. And that's the strange thing about modern life. We live in a world where information is unlimited. Opportunities are everywhere. Technology is powerful. Yet somehow, motivation feels lower than ever. People are busier than ever, but also less productive. Connected to everyone, but focused on nothing. And if that sounds harsh, don't worry. This isn't a lecture. I'm not here to shame you. I'm here to wake you up, because the truth is uncomfortable, but it's also powerful. You're not stuck because life is impossible. You're stuck because you're distracted. Distraction is the new addiction. And unlike older addictions, this one looks completely normal. Nobody panics when you scroll your phone for 3 hours. Nobody questions it when you spend half your evening consuming random content. Nobody stops you when your attention slowly dissolves into endless notifications. In fact, most people are doing the exact same thing, which makes it even more dangerous. Because when everyone around you is distracted, distraction feels normal. But normal doesn't mean healthy. Normal doesn't mean productive. Normal just means common. And right now, the most common lifestyle in the world looks like this. Wake up, check your phone, scroll for a bit, go to work or school, come back home, scroll again, watch something, scroll again, sleep, repeat, day after day, week after week, year after year, and slowly, without realizing it, life turns into maintenance mode. You're not building something, you're just maintaining existence, paying bills, passing exams, finishing tasks. But deep down, there's a quiet voice in your head that keeps asking a question. Is this really it? And if you've ever had that thought, you already know the answer. No, this isn't it. Or at least it doesn't have to be. But for things to change, something important has to happen first. You have to stop waiting, because waiting is the most dangerous habit humans have. Waiting for motivation, waiting for the perfect plan, waiting for the right moment, waiting for life to calm down, waiting for confidence, waiting for tomorrow. But tomorrow is a lie, not because the future doesn't exist, but because humans are incredibly good at postponing their own lives. Think about it. How many times have you told yourself something like this? I'll start next week. I'll start next month. I'll start when things calm down. I'll start when I feel ready. And maybe sometimes you did start. But if we're being honest, most of those starts didn't last very long. 2 weeks, maybe a month. Then life got busy again, or motivation disappeared, or something else felt more urgent. And slowly, the goal faded into the background, until one day you realized something uncomfortable. Years passed, but the goal stayed exactly where it started, still unfinished, still waiting, still sitting somewhere in your mind. And that's when people begin believing something dangerous. They start believing that success requires some kind of special talent, or extraordinary intelligence, or insane levels of motivation. But if you study successful people carefully, something interesting appears. They're not necessarily smarter. They're not necessarily more talented. What they are is consistent. That's the secret most people overlook. Consistency, not intensity, not genius, not inspiration. Consistency, the ability to do something repeatedly, even when it feels boring, even when it feels inconvenient, even when nobody is watching. Because the truth is, progress is usually invisible in the beginning. The first few days of a new habit don't change your life. The first week of practice doesn't transform you. The first month of effort might not even produce noticeable results. And that's exactly why most people quit. They expect immediate feedback, immediate reward, immediate success. But real progress doesn't work that way. Real progress compounds, and compounding is slow at first. Imagine pushing a massive boulder. At the beginning, it barely moves. It feels impossible, heavy, pointless. But if you keep pushing, eventually the boulder starts rolling. And once it rolls, momentum takes over. But here's the problem. Most people quit while the boulder is still heavy. They stop before momentum has a chance to appear, which means they repeat the same painful beginning again and again. New diet, new workout plan, new project, new goal, each time starting from zero, each time quitting before momentum arrives. And that cycle is exhausting because starting over repeatedly drains motivation. Eventually, people begin telling themselves a comforting story. Maybe success just isn't for me, but that story isn't true. Success isn't reserved for a special category of humans. It's usually the result of very boring behaviors repeated consistently, which brings us to something important: systems. People love talking about goals. I want to get fit. I want to make money. I want to be successful. I want to learn new skills. Those are nice ideas. But goals alone are almost useless because goals describe outcomes. Systems create outcomes. For example, if someone says they want to get in shape, that's a goal. But if they schedule workouts 3 times a week, track their food, and build a routine, that's a system. If someone says they want to learn editing, that's a goal. But if they practice editing 1 hour every day and analyze their mistakes, that's a system. Systems remove decision-making. They turn progress into a habit. And habits are powerful because they reduce resistance. You no longer debate with yourself every day. You simply follow the routine. That's why discipline often looks boring from the outside. Because disciplined people don't rely on emotional energy. They rely on structure. And structure is extremely underrated. People imagine success as something dramatic, a sudden breakthrough, a life-changing moment. But in reality, success is usually quiet. It's waking up early even when nobody notices, practicing skills when nobody is clapping, studying when everyone else is relaxing, working on something when results are still invisible. And yes, that can feel lonely sometimes, but that loneliness is temporary. The results eventually become visible, the skills improve, the opportunities appear, momentum builds. But that only happens for people who stay consistent long enough. And consistency requires something uncomfortable: sacrifice. This is the part most people don't like hearing. You cannot have everything at the same time. You cannot chase big goals while protecting every comfort in your life. Something has to move. Something has to shrink. Sometimes it's entertainment. Sometimes it's laziness. Sometimes it's social distractions. Sometimes it's fear. Because if you want real progress, your goals must become priorities, not side hobbies, not occasional attempts, priorities. And priorities show up in one place: your schedule, not your thoughts, not your intentions, your time, because time reveals truth. If someone says their dream is important but spends 5 hours a day on distractions, the dream isn't actually the priority. Their habits are. Habits always expose reality, which means if you want a different life, your habits must change. Not dramatically, not all at once, but deliberately, one improvement at a time. 1 hour at a time, one consistent step at a time. And that brings us back to locking in. Locking in doesn't mean becoming a productivity robot. It doesn't mean working 18 hours a day. It means focusing, truly focusing, choosing a direction, and committing long enough for progress to appear. Because scattered effort produces scattered results. But focused effort compounds. If you spend 1 year seriously improving a skill, you become dangerous in that skill. If you spend 1 year seriously building something, the results begin stacking. But most people divide their attention across dozens of distractions, which means nothing gets enough energy to grow. And that's where locking in becomes powerful. Locking in is a decision. A quiet but serious agreement with yourself. A decision that for the next few months, you will stop drifting. Stop experimenting endlessly. Stop waiting. And instead start building. Building habits. Building skills. Building momentum. Because momentum is life-changing. Once you experience momentum, everything feels different. You wake up with purpose. Progress becomes visible. Confidence increases. Energy rises. And suddenly, the same life that felt stagnant begins moving again. But momentum only appears after consistent effort, which means the beginning is always the hardest part. And that's where most people fail. Not because they're incapable, but because the early phase feels boring, slow, unrewarding. But if you can push through that phase, everything changes. Which is why I want you to do something simple after this video ends. Not 10 things. Not a complete life overhaul. Just one thing. One meaningful improvement. One habit. One skill. One project. One commitment. Something that would genuinely improve your life if you stayed consistent for 90 days. Then give it your attention. Protect time for it. Treat it seriously. Because 90 days of consistency can transform more than you think. 3 months of effort can create real momentum. 3 months can create skills. 3 months can change direction. But only if you commit. And commitment means continuing, even when excitement disappears. Because excitement always disappears, eventually. That's normal. Discipline takes over where excitement ends. And discipline is simply the ability to act regardless of mood. Which is why successful people don't rely on motivation. Motivation is unreliable. Discipline is dependable. Motivation says, I'll work when I feel inspired. Discipline says, I'll work because it's scheduled. And that small difference changes everything. Because feelings fluctuate, but systems remain stable. Which brings us to the final truth. Your life in 2026 will not change because of a video. It will change because of your decisions after the video. You can watch hundreds of motivational videos and still remain stuck. Because inspiration alone doesn't create progress. Action does. Real action. Uncomfortable action. Consistent action. And that's something only you can choose. No one else can make that decision for you. Not a video. Not a friend. Not a mentor. It has to come from you. A moment where you decide you're done drifting. Done waiting. Done postponing your own potential. And ready to actually build something. Because years from now, you don't want to look back and realize you spent your best energy watching life instead of participating in it. You want to remember that you tried. That you built something. That you improved. That you moved forward. Even if progress was slow. Even if mistakes happened. Because movement always beats stagnation. And the good news is this. It's not too late. It's never too late to start moving. But the moment has to happen eventually. So the question becomes simple. Are you going to lock in for 2026? Or will this year quietly pass the same way the previous ones did? Because if you truly commit, if you really decide to focus, this could be the year everything begins to change. But that decision, that part is entirely up to you. So what's it going to be? Are you locking in? Or are we having the same conversation next year?